Welcome to the Bend Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source Weekly, Bend's locally owned newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Bend Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I'm Aaron Switzer, publisher of The Source and host of this week's Bend Don't Break podcast. Well, actually, this week and every week. Pretty much. I have today Lexie Park, Locavore's outreach coordinator. She has been working in food access and education for the last 8 years, domestically and internationally in the NGO sector. I had to ask what NGO was. That's how bad I am. It's non-governmental
organization
sector. From field research to public speaking and interpretation, her experience working with families experiencing food insecurity and adverse health outcomes continues to fuel her passion for a just, robust food system benefiting human lives and fostering a thriving natural ecosystem. Lexie, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is my first ever podcast, so this is really exciting and something new. I love it.
Great. Well, Lexie, maybe first just give listeners an understanding of a little Locavore history. How long has the organization been around, and then what year did you come in? And we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. Well, Locavore was founded in 2009 by our founder and president, Nicole Tim Branch. She is a St. Charles nurse still to this day.
Oh, wow.
And just saw a huge need for connecting the community to their food source, a very high nutritional food source. And she is a Bend native. And so, she has been involved with local farms and ranches for a long time and, knows there's a strong ranching history here and just saw the need to connect the dots and bring the community closer to their food producers and for the benefit of their health and also for the sake of our local farms and ranches to stay competitive in the food scene.
And has it always, you have a pretty prominent location on 3rd Street.
Mm-hmm.
If people don't know, it's across from, can I say Rite Aid? Are they still, they're still
It's
there?
Albertsons.
It's Albertsons.
Yeah,
now,
Albertsons next door to Carl's Jr.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is kind of a funny juxtaposition there. But you can find us on 3rd and Revere, essentially.
Yeah. And has it always been there?
No, actually, our first retail location was on 1st Street.
Okay.
And so it all began in Nikki's garage, and then it kind of snowballed from there, and they got their first brick and mortar. And then in 2016, I believe it was when we moved everything over to the 3rd Street location. Okay. And so, just been expanding since then. And it's been fantastic. I came into the picture in 2021 of October. And I actually...
Right during the pandemic.
Yes, yeah. So I actually started as a volunteer. I was helping them pilot their container reuse program. So we got a grant from the Environmental Center, which allowed us to purchase a dishwasher and sanitizer so that we could accept jar donations from the community.
Okay.
And so then we just were pre-weighing them and then stickering them with our logo and then just putting them out on the sales floor for people to use to fill their bulk products in case they hadn't brought their own containers. There's no need to bring them. We're just collecting them on behalf of the community. And for just a small deposit, you can grab one and fill up your bulk. And it's great. So that's kind of how I started. And so I got really familiar with the marketplace and the staff just doing that. And then I was like, can I please work here?
Yeah.
So and then ever since it's been, history. So I still do work in the marketplace, but there was a need to kind of reach the community a little more and build on our membership system as we are a member-based nonprofit. So that's kind of where I've found myself now and doing more outreach and coming into the community in spaces like this and just helping to spread the word.
I don't think that when people go to the place, I don't think that they understand that you are a nonprofit. You have a board. You answer to the board, and
we do.
That's a pretty interesting dynamic for
It
a
is.
grocery store,
Right. Yeah, it's not a familiar thing to a lot of
Right.
people. As far as we can tell, we're the only one really of our kind in the country. And so our
Wow.
model is really unique, but scalable to the rest of the country, so we can each kind of foster and build on our local food
Yeah.
availability, seasonality, things like that. Yeah.
And you guys have continued to grow. I mean, you've since I think through the pandemic, people had got more of an appreciation for where their food comes from
Yes.
and what supply chains look like and why, living here, you do actually need farmers. And have you
Absolutely.
felt that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, uniquely during the pandemic, we actually saw a lot of growth for
Yeah.
Locavore, whereas other stores were experiencing, kind of a downfall and having really low
Right.
availability of certain items, whether it be
Except
food,
for toilet paper.
except for
Those
toilet
kind of
paper
people.
was like just a giant fiasco. But yeah, so we were very, fortunate to see growth in that, with that kind of like fragmented global food and agriculture system, kind of
Yeah.
seeing how these global affairs and things like a major pandemic can influence that availability. And so people kind of found us as a resource to be able to go to the most direct source of
Right.
food available, and found that, we've done the math. And so for every dollar spent on food locally, 78 cents or 76 cents will stay locally versus like 28
Yeah.
cents conventionally. And so, people were really attracted to the fact that they could access really healthy food, and also help to keep their dollars circulating locally. That's helping other businesses here create more jobs, raise the rate of pay for their employees, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Right.
it took, something really crazy for a lot of people to find us and learn about us. But since then, we've seen fantastic growth, and just trying to, keep up that momentum and really call more people into the local food
I'm
scene.
always fascinated when I go in the store, and you're going. I mean, it's a pretty small store, and you have packed it. I mean, there is
Yeah.
something on every inch, and I'm always struck by how there's just it looks like whole different economies on everything. You've got places where you're getting natural meats, and you're getting the dairy thing out in the. Maybe talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
how that works for you, because it's not like a normal grocery store where you're putting in your order and the truck arrives and they drop all the things for the shelf. You put it up. There's your Fruit Loops,
Right.
et
Yeah.
cetera.
You're right.
It seems to me like all of those little things need some kind of specific management, and certain individuals are coming to fill those slots. And even like your honey section, it's local. You're dealing with a bunch of local beekeepers. There's got to be ups and downs just for that one little
Definitely.
part of the shelf. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the way our sourcing works, of course, is we always stock locally first. And so we consider Deschutes, Crook, and Jefferson counties our most immediate local counties to be sourcing from. And so, like with our meat selection, we have, let's see, I wrote it down here, how many ranchers we have. We have currently over 17 ranchers, and all of those are coming from those 3 local counties.
Right.
So that mile radius, is pretty small compared to how a lot of other grocery stores are going to be sourcing their product. And so we have the largest local meat selection in Oregon that we know of, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for seafood, we're branching out into, the Newport area and the Oregon coast. And then for produce, similarly, we work primarily in those 3 local counties. But because we are in a high desert climate, that means that our local food season is going to be shorter, as we kind of have those temperature extremes, frost in the middle of summer.
I'm still trying to get a pear on my pear tree.
Seriously, yeah.
I
It's a
understand
struggle.
the struggle.
Yeah, totally. And so we're really fortunate to have that local produce access, but the season is short. And so as we move into fall and winter, and then early spring, we start to branch out more regionally. And then in that case, we do work with an organic distributor who is based out of Eugene, organically grown company.
Sure.
And they work with also small family farms as well. But with them, they work primarily with people who have organic certification, where like locally, that's not always the case, as these farmers are a lot smaller scale. It maybe it's not necessarily in the cards, or
it's so much harder here.
It's so much harder here.
Right.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of how that works. And then as far as our other, we call them value added products, we'll branch out regionally. A lot comes from the Willamette Valley and in Portland. But then for other food items that we have a demand for and requests for, we will, reach into Northern California and a little bit into Washington for, say, things like apples or pears.
Oh, we're just
things
so
that aren't
close to
grown
Hood
at scale.
River
Yeah,
and that
totally.
fruity area.
Yeah, but again, locally is our goal first and foremost. And so we've really expanded our shelves and have really tried to bring in more and more value added vendors to help people realize that there are those staple foods available. So we have I think we have like 110 value added vendors now too. So yeah, it's a constantly changing environment for us just inherently. But yeah, just trying to
like
really connect those dots.
Challenge. Seems like just an incredible challenge.
It is,
because you can I'm sure you have farmers and ranchers and they're online and expected to bring, and then you get the call, hey, we don't have it. We're not going to be able to, or we have so much that we need you to take, and you can probably only take a little bit.
Yeah. With that small space, we are always battling storage is a huge thing in shelf space for our vendors. So it can be sometimes hard to bring in new people when we just don't have the space available. But yeah, what is great is that we can put out that direct call to our farms and ranches and say, hey, we're really in need of some ground beef, for example, or something like that. And then they're going to show up, or someone from their staff is going to show up with a giant cooler full of meat. They're going to stock it right then and there. So there is that exposure for people to kind of see like, oh, these are my local food producers. And you can reach out directly to them. Of course, they do a lot of sales online and delivery and everything, and at the farmers markets. But for some people, kind of having a go-to grocery store where they know they can find all those same products, where maybe they can't commit to purchasing half a cow, or if they're like, well, I need a pound of ground beef for this recipe, rest assured they know they can come to us. We're open 10 to 7 every single day. So it's a great resource for people to be able to find, a lot of the local products. Otherwise they would be searching for online or at the farmer's market. The farmer's market is so fantastic to be able to get that, exposure and have a conversation with your food producers. But, there's shorter hours and not everyone can make it during the week, or, it's kind of variable. And they're not year round. We are year round. So yeah, we do our best to kind of fill in the blanks there and create a space for everyone to connect and, for there to be local food available.
I want to put this as PC as possible. I mean, Locavore is seen, I think, as having a very progressive, somewhat counterculture kind of front, but your producers are not. You're dealing with 17 ranchers, and I don't think it's a stretch for me to say that that's going to be a more conservative community.
Right.
So Locavore actually does exist in kind of this in-between space. And for, in our political times, there aren't a lot of people that live in that space. Most people are one side or the other, but, the nature of your business is that you're hearing from all perspectives and getting, really good information on what works and what doesn't work for farming. And it's not politically based. It's like boots on the ground.
Totally. Yeah. And, I would personally say like food is inherently political, but what I love about Locavore and actually what I value about our customers is that, everyone is there for a common purpose. And even if they're maybe not consciously seeing that when they walk in, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to all share something in common. No, we want to support our local people. We want to support our local businesses, our neighbors, and that's something to really be proud of, I think, in this community during times when, politically things are just becoming so much more divisive and, with so much more information available and everything. But that is one thing that I find a lot of value in, and that brings value to my own personal life. It makes me feel like I can better understand people and know why they want to be there too.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to better reach people in my role, just with that understanding and really emphasizing, hey, we're in this together and, we're making a lot of strides. And I think, like I said, we should be really proud of that.
I think sometimes people, food can be political, but in the end, everybody's got to eat. And
Absolutely.
then you don't really ever look at your plum and go, I wonder what the politics were behind my plum. Was the guy, who'd the guy vote for in the last election, and where's he leaning in on this social, issue or something.
Right.
And so it is and we here in Bend, we live on that line, and there is such a robust, really good ranching community here that has been caretaking the land, and, they'll have their squabbles, but I found it interesting when I found out how many ranchers, I thought, well, they must be involved in those discussions.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you have them on your board. You have people from the ranching community on your board as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is really helpful for us to have that perspective coming through in a leadership position for Locavore. I think it's really important for all of those perspectives to be heard and considered.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, it's about food procurement and our nutrition. And I think what's also great about, the farms and ranches that we partner with is that we're all striving for strong land stewardship here. I think, being here in this Central Oregon high desert environment, there's something to love about it. And we find a lot of value in where we live, and I think that's something we can also really connect on too. Like we envision, a robust, like wildlife population. We want to protect our agricultural lands, our wild lands, and a lot of the times these farms and ranches are that buffer between, these more urban communities.
Sure.
And then, they're kind of like that rural like interface there. And so, yeah, they really need our support, and we count on them. I mean, like right now, a lot of them are really worried about fires, encroaching on the farms, and they are,
Right,
and so
right,
they're
yeah.
that barrier between us and those fires a lot of the time. And so, there's just so much to consider and work together on that. Yeah, we really need to come through and find those common grounds to be able to, keep our local food scene strong and stay connected, and not divided,
Yeah. I was surprised at how many, the fire season here seems to be filled with brush fires. Like, not in the past, it's been so much up in the national forest and trees, but this year really has been a threat to farmers. I hadn't thought about that angle, but I know out east they've had a lot of those kind of range fires.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, like invasive weed encroachment on lands, like cheatgrass and things like that can really make fire burn faster and hotter and things like that. What that, is really hard for our farms and ranches to be fighting against because, when they're committed to not using these synthetic inputs that may otherwise be like killing off those weeds and stuff, like it's just really hard for them to tackle that and create a strong barrier for that. That's just one example, but I think fires are burning faster and hotter these days, and it's a really big issue. And so just that they're putting so much time and attention into creating that fire defensible space. We really need that action happening.
They say that the mosquito is evidence of the devil, but I, also put cheatgrass in that category.
Oh yeah.
If there's
I
one
agree.
thing I hate, it is cheatgrass.
Yeah, totally.
It gets in your dogs, and
It's the
I'm going to
worst.
blame maybe the farmers need to work harder to eradicate that. We'll just put that on their plate too with everything else they're doing.
Hey, one more big issue to solve.
It's all around where I live. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's bad.
Maybe I would like, they use the term food insecurity a lot these days. It's become I won't say it's a catchphrase, but it's certainly something that we hear a lot about. But, to the average person, when you say food insecurity, they're looking at you with a puzzled look like, Man, I go into Albertsons and
Seems like there's
there's
food
food
there.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, and I've never had, and inflation's bad, but they never have problem buying food. What does it mean to talk about food insecurity?
I mean, I think going back to like earlier in the conversation when we talked about how kind of broken the food system that we saw was like during COVID,
Yeah.
that is an example of food insecurity. Having those barriers to that strong food access, like and global affairs, like when wars are happening, like in
Right.
Ukraine and Russia and things like that, where they're major exporters for grain
Right.
and feed for cattle. Like you just, I think we as consumers don't necessarily see it that way, but it's all interconnected. And so even though we might still be seeing things on the shelves, like behind the scenes and on the ranch and stuff, they're really dealing with major issues, on a larger scale. So that is like one example of like food insecurity. But also, another example is we're partnered with the Bend Food Project here in Bend. They work closely with the Giving Plate and Neighbor Impact to collect food on behalf of families struggling to feed themselves. I would highly recommend checking them out, signing up for their newsletter, as they send out a newsletter with all of the stats and how many families that they are serving. Same with the Giving Plate. And those numbers are growing. And so I think food insecurity is also about not only availability, but also costs. And yeah,
Do you see it at Locavore? Do you see the impact of grain shortages or inability to get local produce, or what are the threats for you there?
Yeah, well, one example was when the avian flu was really happening around here. We had a lot of issues around like egg availability.
I remember that.
And so that was like a really big issue. We had totally empty shelves for like a while for egg supply, and people were like, where's the eggs? And that was just one example of like, well, there's this major thing happening and it's really affecting our local food availability in this way. So, there's like one example there.
Yeah. Is it, I know you guys have been in that space for a while, but you are outgrowing that space. You've had Bend is growing. So, and I know that doesn't necessarily mean Locavore is going to grow, but there is so much focus on, and I think again, it's a pandemic wave of caring more about where you eat, where your food comes from, and so that's got to mean that it's putting more attention on you and causing you happy problems to have with space issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. It is a fortunate problem to have. Be like, hey, we have so many people interested in either being a vendor or wanting to shop here that we're really needing to meet that demand. But yeah, I think even just the little things can help with that. Re-merchandising, building more racks, taking advantage of the space that we have. We're constantly building on our systems, behind the scenes. Like, for example, we more recently acquired a like giant walk-in meat freezer. So now we don't just have the sales floor freezers that our ranchers are stocking. Now they can come and drop off way more product at a time and unload and come less. But that means that we have the availability to store more on their behalf and possibly carry more ranchers for that reason, and maybe sharing some shelf space. But yeah, it's complicated. We're always figuring out how can we meet this demand and everything.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of staying tuned. Things change a lot in the store as far as like how we're merchandising and things. So sometimes it just takes like a walkthrough to see, where is that product I really like sitting at now, things like that. But
you also have you've got storage units around the parking lot. I was just there the other
parking
weekend,
lot
and
is
when seeing all
evolving,
the
for
growth,
sure.
you've got these evolving your milk area, your meat storage, and it just shows that the bursting at the seams.
Totally, it's all happening. People are really making local happen, which is awesome. So yeah, you're totally right. It is a great problem to have.
Do you see yourself in another location down the road, or what's your vision?
Possibly. I think right now we're really just focusing on our systems, and scaling those up and making sure that we're keeping up. Because, with so much growth, we kind of have to remember, wait, we're still really small and we still have a really small staff. So, there's really only so much that we can do at this time, but it's always on the radar thinking like, what is next for us? So stay tuned on that, but yeah,
What do you
we're
see
just focusing on kind of optimizing where we are.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
What is your, have any projects in the works or things that you really are like dreaming about or hoping to make happen in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, in my role, as I run our membership system, I'm trying to find ways to expand on that, make it a little more seamless, create more benefits for our members who are dedicated shoppers. And so, I'm always kind of doing some research on how I can fix that up and, possibly creating like a member portal for people to go in and, kind of check in on it themselves and things like that, so they can feel a little bit more in the know with their membership, and just the communications. I want to make sure people know what's going on because we are so dynamic. There's always something really exciting happening, whether it be an event or a new system or our new chicken and fish freezers, that we were fundraising for. Now we're carrying a couple more seafood vendors. We have way more room for more chicken, and even duck and everything. So there's always something really awesome happening. So for me, focusing on our memberships and then, those processes, that's something I'm always thinking about.
Yeah. How did you come to get so passionate about this area of living?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, while I was in college, I studied anthropology, so it was very, broad, but I really tried to hone in and focus on food and how people were connecting with their environment. And so that kind of snowballed into like a lot of case study and then field school work. Like,
where did you go to school?
I went to UC Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was
Great
really
place.
fun. Yeah, really fun.
Yeah.
I do really like being in the high desert, though. It's definitely more.
Half Moon Bay is
I'm
pretty
feeling
nice.
at home. Half Moon Bay is nice. Yeah, totally. But I'm more of a mountains and river girl. But so with that work, I found myself studying more public health as far as nutrition, and examining other case studies in other countries and, just kind of creating like comparison models and how more like local representation in food is important. And it's something that people are really interested in, not just around here, I found, but then upon moving here, I really wanted to tap into local food, just not only for that reason, but also, for myself, because I wanted to get to know my people more. I wanted to get to know who is, growing food around here and in such a challenging environment. I found that really fascinating. Yeah. The success that came along with so many environmental challenges, I really found that inspiring.
Yeah.
And so, I reached out to volunteer there at other local farms and then, found myself in this role and I feel like it's a great fit and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Where do you see Locavore 5 years from now?
Ooh,
What would you
5 years from now?
What would you see Locavore's future looking like?
Yeah, I mean, I see us bringing on more roles. One thing we've talked about is bringing on someone with a strong background, either in like ranching or farming, someone who can be kind of a really strong liaison for us. Like as we grow and are doing so many like operational things within, we still want to make sure that we have really strong relationships and that we're really getting the picture right, with our farms and ranches. So creating more roles in the organization is something that we're like, thinking about. We're hiring right now for just the marketplace. So building on that staff, putting more boots on the ground really is where we're at right now, and kind of thinking about how we can continue to build on our mission and support farms and ranches, and how can we do that, in these roles, diversifying our roles, I guess.
When you look at food insecurity and the trends and how people shop, and there's such an oppressive umbrella of Amazon hanging over everything, and Do you get the feeling, and I know this is really coming down to whether you're a glass half empty, half full
Right,
kind of
right.
person, but does it feel like it's an uphill battle, or does it feel to you like you're really, that the winds of change are behind you? I mean, as people are thinking about, because I get very depressed, it's like as you have Amazon, everything's getting aggregated into these smaller and smaller entities, or larger and larger entities. You think, oh my gosh, they're going to drop food from a drone. I'm never going to leave my chair,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
I don't like that vision. And so, I just wonder, sitting where you are in the center of the good part of the storm,
Yeah.
how does that look to you?
Well, it does kind of feel like an inescapable doom sometimes. I totally agree. I get depressed thinking about, where things are going in that sense. But as far as food, I mean, I know for some, those kind of online platforms, even like aside from Amazon, like it can be really helpful to some people who maybe have barriers in like transportation
Sure.
or,
Yeah.
a certain disability or, what have you, that maybe prevent them from having that like shopping in person experience. But I know for us, like people still, especially when it comes to food, shop with their hands. There's feeling involved. There's a sensory experience
yeah.
in the grocery store, like when you go to pick the right melon or whatever, you want to like give it a smell and things like that. Or like, does this feel like, like a good avocado or like, something
Right.
like that. So
Yeah.
I think there's still something to be said for showing up and being there in person. And I think with this expansion, and these like really large scale entities, that is, gonna continue to be attractive to some people. But I think for a lot of people, especially, just talking over the counter with people at Locavore, it makes people feel like things are getting out of hand or out of control, and they kind of want to simplify their lives
Yeah.
when that happens. And I think even though local food is not simple, there's a lot of challenges involved with that. I think.
Well, you're recomplicating the system, which is
Yeah.
needs to happen. But
Yeah. So I think, there are a lot of people who still want to, shop and have a sensory experience and connect with people. They
Right.
want to know who is growing their food. They want to know, who made that delicious chili crisp oil or whatever. Yeah, they want that sense of community. I think when things start to get really large scale, they feel like that community really can dissolve. But people want to reconnect.
Yeah,
Is what I'm finding.
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say that qualifies for half full. That's
full.
halfway.
I
It
try
started
my
out
best.
half empty. I was like,
try my
oh,
best. I don't
Lexie's
know.
half
My
empty.
psyche's not always in that space, but yeah, I'm feeling really optimistic
Yeah.
today.
We're at the end of our time. How can people, one, become members or become more involved in Locavore and help
Right.
the movement along?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, just coming to check us out, really take a walk through the store and see what's available, because you might be surprised at what is actually locally and regionally available. And then otherwise, we have some events coming up that really help us, continue with our mission. And so we have, coming up, we have our last outdoor summer Meet Your Farmer dinner. This is kind of a program that we do to connect food producers with local restaurants and local chefs for sourcing down the line. They can, it helps to create and sustain those relationships as far as that sourcing.
Plug for that dinner. I will be there.
Wednesday, August 21st. It's at Five Pine Resort and Sisters, and it's a double feature. The food provided is going to be from Cascade Mountain Pastures, as well as Mahonia Gardens. Those are both sisters resident farms. So it's going to be delicious. Check that out on our website. The menu is amazing.
I promise, if you buy a ticket and I'm there, I will bore you to death over dinner the whole night. So
Hey, if the conversation is anything like this, it won't be boring. Yeah. And
what else you got going?
And then we've got another Meet Your Farmer dinner coming up in October 11th. That one's going to be at Bosa. We don't yet know who's going to be our featured farmer / rancher yet, so stay tuned on that. Just kind of save the date. That is also the day of our quarterly member appreciation day. So regardless of what membership tier you're at, everyone will get 10% off who's a member on their entire purchase. So that's a great day to come and stock up on local food. And you can become a member either from our website, or you can at centraloregonlocavore.org, or you can come to the store and purchase a membership there in person.
Right.
Which, some people really like to do because they want to get that feel and then be like, yeah, I do want to really support this place. So, and then with your membership, you can get discounted tickets for these events like that.
Awesome. Well, I'll put my own personal plug. Locavore is my favorite place for Christmas presents. And I know it's August. And it's a long way away, but
it's something
they
to
are
think about.
excellent just great little gifts there. And
we have our, so you can get, little gifts like that are locally sourced for your loved ones. We also host a holiday gift market every December. So that is coming up on December 14th, I believe. It's a Saturday. So save the date for that too. That is a great way to go and get some locally made gifts, that maybe you won't find at the marketplace, but who are our regular vendors there too. So it's super fun. It's great. There's a lot of really talented folks out there making great local products. So
Well, Lexie, thanks for coming in and spending some time with us. And now
me.
you're done with your first podcast. You
All
can
right,
say you're a
made
veteran.
it. Fantastic. Thanks for a great first experience on a podcast. I really appreciate it.
You have been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast. Thank you very much. You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bensource.com.